And of course, where we want to start tonight's show is from Action Station. Kassie is going to join us and have a talk about all things Māori Ward and the story from last week around Ellen Tamati. So let's get into the show right now. Kassie, good evening to you and thanks for joining us tonight.
Kia ora korua and kia ora to everyone listening tonight. Awesome to be here.
Yeah, lovely to have you, man. Hey, like everyone knows this story, and you know, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here because the story has kind of gone through its cycle, but I think it's probably still quite good for us to at least start where. Well, this is not where conversations start because I know you guys have been pushing since 2018 to get away from this referendum, but one of the big parts of New Zealand conversation that was reanimated towards Māori wards was last week when Hobson's pledge ran this campaign of My Mana Doesn't Need mandate vote no to Māori wards. Of course, Ellen Tamati there, a kuia from Rotorua, and disgusting, horrible, terrible story that it was. And you know, even when Don Brash said, oh, we probably would have just gotten AI, even having AI do it, it's like you're still using the imagery of Māori to say no to Māori things. You know what I mean? So even though that might not have offended any individual like this has, but to basically put a make-believe Māori face up there and say, I'm saying no to Māori wards is just gross. It's gross. Like, and a very interesting point was made by a very horrible commentator last week, which was, well, why couldn't you get a Māori to front this campaign? You know, why did you have to find a stock image and do it? Why couldn't you get Māori to stand up and say no to Māori wards? And I think we don't need to know the answer to that question to see how telling that question might be. So, Kassie, start us off in this conversation. We're talking Māori wards. You're from Action Station. Tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, thank you. Last week it was disgusting. I actually just remember shedding a tear with my partner when we watched the video of Fire Ellen talk about how horrified it was to find out that her face was plastered on a billboard without her permission. And it's ironic, right? Because there's no way that people in Hobson's pledge would support having their personal identity attached with a political perspective that they didn't sign on to, but here they are. I think what's important to know about Māori wards is it didn't all just happen last week. So Māori wards are seats on local councils or regional councils that are designated for Māori to be able to represent Māori interests, but they're also there to serve the whole community as well. And they've been around since 2001. However, during that time, the majority way that you were able to get one onto your council is you had to go through a referendum. And if you remember the Treaty Principles Bill debacle, we all know what we feel about referendums. They used by the majority dominant group in order to usually subjugate the minority group. So for a long time, for those years, it was deemed almost impossible for councils to be able to get the numbers via a referendum to be able to get a Māori ward onto their council to even have Māori at the decision-making table. And this meant a lot because, for example, in Taranaki, there's one elected official there who is the second Māori ever to sit on that council in 100 years. So we're talking about severe underrepresentation by Māori in local councils and a solution to that being Māori wards, but the racists put a caveat on it that you can only have that representation if you get the entire community to vote yes to it. And then inevitably, the racists, aka Hobson's pledge, will get all riled up, they'd run a campaign against it, and before you know it, that referendum has been voted down and Māori do not get the representation that they're looking for. So in 2021, a bunch of communities and ourselves worked together to be able to put forward a petition that changed the law. So Labor at that time changed the law to get rid of referendums, which meant that it would be easier, take away the discriminatory barrier, and it would be easier for Māori wards to be voted in at councils. And as a result of that law change, there was a 1,500% increase in Māori wards that popped up all around the country. So the referendums are a barrier. And keeping in mind, we don't have referendums on any other ward. So where I live, there's a ward for a particular town because it's often left out of the bigger conversations. There's no referendum on that. Rural wards exist in lots of places, yeah. There's never a referendum on rural wards, just Māori ones. And so we saw this huge increase of councils really wanting to take advantage of the fact that they could get Māori representation in and that would benefit their councils. And then, of course, last year we saw national government get rid of that, bring referendums back and force councils to either get rid of them or have a referendum. And here we are running into referendum season now. My potted history on Māori Wards.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's been several councils, and forgive me, I don't have them to hand, I should have done, who have had the option of a referendum or not, and they've gone the way that I guess you would want to support. What's been happening amongst the councils at the moment when they've been asking the ratepayers or the citizens about, referendum on Māori wards or not?
Well, so last year it was really this defining moment, right? Because the councils were given an ultimatum: either get rid of your own one or go to the referendum. And the referendum costs money. The councils know they're divisive. They know there are problems. And yet, what ended up happening is the overwhelming majority, I think it was 98% of councils, stuck by their Māori wards. And that was a test on them to see how far they've actually come, how much they're willing to honour Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and the majority of them said, we're standing by our Māori wards. So what you will notice is that so at the moment there's 42 councils that will be going up. There's 78 councils or regions in total. The South Island does not have Māori wards because there's another arrangement with Kaitahu, with the iwi there. But in many other places, particularly in the North Island, Māori wards have been proven to increase Māori representation. And all of those 42 councils love them. They think they're working, they're going really well, they stand by them. So it's interesting because in this equation, the councils are not the enemy. Most of the councils really support Māori wards. They didn't want to do a referendum. Some looked into legal advice to boycott the referendum and not have to do it. But most of them have gone towards doing that referendum, even though the central government bullied them into basically getting rid of their Māori wards.
It's probably important to ask a couple of questions, almost taking two steps backwards. The first is why do we bring Māori wards in altogether? I mean, I assume as an ignoramus that part of the treaty guaranteed representation. If there wasn't representation, we need to get it in there through Māori wards. But the second thing on that question is why are councils supporting them? Like, why do councils see them as working? What work are they doing that aids the council work?
Well, we actually gathered quite a lot of stories last year from people who are members of communities, people who are councillors on councils, and asked for any of their stories and their experiences from working with Māori wards. And what we heard was an overwhelming story of positivity. So a lot of people talked about how Māori ward councils have often bridged hard-to-reach Māori communities with councils. And so they've done that work because they already have the relationships. They've really bridged the relationships with local iwi, with marae, but also ngā iwi katoa, like the whole community. Where this really showed up that people talked about quite consistently was in emergency responses and natural disasters. So because there were those relationships that were already there, it became very easy to be able to mobilise everyone, the communities, to be able to look after each other. So that meant that people weren't being left behind. So overwhelming experience is this has been working. It also, I don't probably focus on this as much, but I will say that there were comments made that when there were problems with, local iwi who were having real concerns of the council, it was often the Māori ward councillors who were going in and having beautiful kōrero with them and working out where to go forward. And that stopped councils from getting in this real adversarial, relationship with local iwi. So heaps of benefits. And I would say that, a lot of these councils have only had Māori wards for 18 months. So there is this kind of whakaaro, throw all the wins on the table and everything that's working and all this concrete stuff that has happened. But I think more than anything, people have said it's actually about weaving communities together and building closer relationships.
Green Chewie, do you want to throw some stuff in here?
I mean, I don't really know where to add, but I think just one thing that I just find frustrating is that I feel like I obviously just finished university, and a lot of the things I studied was around like Māori politics, and I learned about the RMA and all of these protections. And I guess the one thing that I've just found overwhelmingly frustrating is that it feels like in all of that I was learning how there were a lot of gaps in these types of things, how even the things that we had in place were essentially great, but still had further to go. And to see them attack something like Māori Wards, one of those mechanisms, is just, yeah, I guess it's very disheartening, because it feels like local government as well, they really do have to be the main people who are seeing the population, like local central government, they don't really go and see the people, at least not the ones who are currently in coalition. But it just seems like, yeah, uh, I don't really know what's in there, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, I guess, what can we do to kind of help educate people in what they're like Māori wards can provide?
Yeah, awesome. So there's a bit in there, and I just want to respond to a couple of things. Like, first of all, I think we really need to see this as a very deliberate attack on Māori being in decision-making roles, because the reality is that a lot of councils have a say over, for example, my hapu has been fighting the council over having a landfill being put next door to our marae for decades and decades. Councils are often making decisions about, as Māori, our awa, our rivers, our moana, our oceans, our wahitapu, our sacred places. And so the fact that Māori have been locked out of decision making about the places that are important to us, it's horrendous. It's completely unfair. It's discriminatory. And so it's really essential that we have a say at that local table. And it's a deliberate attempt by this central government to be able to strip Māori so they're not at the decision table. So basically, it makes it easier for commercial enterprise and big business to be able to have their say, because they know that when Māori have a say, we usually look after the people and the land, and so they don't want us there. So I think, first of all, let's just be really honest and upfront that this is a deliberate attack on Tino Rangatiratanga and on our people having a say. And then secondly, I'll say is that one of the difficult things is that we fought very hard against having referendums for a reason, and that's because they're rigged against us. We know that the majority of people who vote in both general elections and local elections are older Pākehā who often don't have relationships with Māori and are prone to misinformation, disinformation, and racism about Māori, right? So it's already not a level playing field in terms of how this decision will get made. So I guess what I'll say here is that one of the essential things is that in 42 councils, we are potentially about to lose 42 plus Māori voices, because some areas have more councillors than others. So over 42 Māori voices at local government, and they will disappear in 2028. And for 6 years, we're not allowed to be able to bring them back in. So it's a deliberate way to lock Māori out of decision making. And a lot of this will be won based on how older Pākehā vote. And that's really hard because it's not a level playing field, as I said. So the task in all of this, I think, is that we currently are connected to over 36 local groups and contacts around the country who are currently running their own local campaigns. And they're going to be going straight on the ground, door knocking, doing all kinds of stuff to be able to get out the vote. And part of that is actually saying we need our tangata tiriti allies, and their friends and their whānau really thinking about how they're going to support Māori Wards too. Because the reality is, even if in most areas we got every single Māori out to vote, we could still lose it because it is structurally gamed against us. So this really is a time to be getting involved, basically, in a campaign if you're in one of those 42 regions around the country.
Is there any feeling amongst you and your community, and even like places like action stations, because what's happened with the Treaty Principles Bill, the Regulatory Standards Bill, the response to things like the Māori Health Authority going, the response to things like losing Te Reo off the headline of, it seems that all of that has been much bigger than a Māori response. So it feels like, especially with those submissions to the Regulatory Standards Bill and the Treaty Principles Bill, there are a lot of non-Māori already activated to say, no. Does it feel that way to you guys, or are non-Māori still kind of dragging their heels in this and we need to give them more of a kick up the arse?
I actually think that the David Seymours and the Christopher Luxons have underestimated the amount of support among non-Māori for Tino Rangatiratanga and for Te Tiriti o Waitangi. I think, and I just want to also say, that's a shout out to the educators. For a good 20 to 30 years, the big strategy that people within Te Ao Māori and that a lot of Pākehā were doing was educating people. And I'm actually going to shout out to Paula Marie McKenzie, and I saw her in the chat because she was one of my kaiko at Te Wānanga o Raukawa, so kia ora whaia. But it's truly been the educators, I think, who have shifted the ground underneath the politics. And so over time, people have been learning more about Te Tiriti this year. People have been learning more about Te Tiriti. And I honestly think that if you sit down for like a full day Te Tiriti class, it's very hard to come out of that and believe that what happened with colonisation was fair or right or just. It's just when you learn the actual historical facts about what was happening, it's very difficult to justify colonisation. It just kind of starts falling away. So I think that a lot of that work, especially by the educators, especially from our whānau Māori who have just held the flag for Tino Rangatiratanga ia rā, ia tau for so long, is now coming home to roost. And I think that this current government has rolled out Trumpian tactics that have worked in other countries, and I don't think they realise how much of a stronghold we have here to support Te Tiriti o Waitangi. The thing is that that's going to be tested, and what we're noticing with Hobson's pledge, it's just they have money, they have the money. When I saw those billboards, I honestly thought to myself, the amount of bank that they have rolling into straight up state is beyond what we have in the progressive movement or on the left. We can't afford to get billboards up like that for the most part without, dialing in some favours or whatnot, what I'm sure people do. And so they are going to bankroll this to hell. They are going to spread all kinds of misinformation. They already do that on lots of different stuff. And there's going to be a test for Aotearoa. Like, where do we stand on this? Where do we stand on the founding document that created us? And so, I really believe that we can win all 42. But the reality is that I'm not going to decide that. Māori aren't going to decide that. It's going to be, our treaty partners who are going to decide what happens this October.
It is ironic that one of David Seymour's legacy is going to be bringing together Māori and non-Māori like no one ever has before. That's going to be it'll be on his gravestone, one of his legacies. Thank you, Mr. Seymour, for bringing together the country under one voice. On some level, you were right, but you brought us together in a different kind of one voice. Hey, Kassie, let's tell people about your website and what they can do to check it out and what it's all about.
Yeah, sure. So we have been working with a group. So if anybody has seen Together for Te Tiriti, so if you've seen signs on people's fences, so we created that last year as part of the response to the Treaty Principles Bill. And you'll see in the corner here that extended whānau, recreated that tohu. So that's in the corner there. And this is our front-facing website that we really want people to share with other tangata Te Tiriti and other Pākehā allies. So a lot of what you'll see on here is, I guess, it's not your usual hardcore Toi Tu Te Tiriti type whakaaro. There'll be lots of that, but this website here is more for if you've got friends and whānau or family or neighbours, and you're not sure where they might be sitting around Māori Wards. This is the website that you can share and give to them that gives them good information that is also combating the misinformation that is out there. So that's māoriwards.nz. It will show you, as you see here, whether or not your council will be running for a Māori ward. That's really important to know. If your council isn't, kei te pai, still share this stuff on your social media because somebody else, somebody else in a different rohi might see it. And then at the very bottom, if you scroll right down to the end.
I'm going. There I am.
I'm like passenger driving. There's some posters there as well. There's going to be leaflets later this week, and that you can put up if you like. And then in the very top corner, sorry, it's back up again. There's also merch there if you want to
Yeah.
wear it. There's a merch option, and we will also have placards. So just like we had with Together for Te Tiriti, if you're feeling like you really want to proclaim it wherever you may be, there will also be placards available as well. Don't take down your Together for Te Tiriti placard because we want to keep those up for next year because we just think that's gonna that's timeless. But if you're really into protecting Māori wards, there's the option to do that too. And then lastly, if you're listening and you are in one of the 42 regions and you really want to get amongst it, contact us on info@actionstation.org.nz. That's info@actionstation.org.nz. Or if you get Action Station emails, just reply to it and ask if there's a local group in your area. Because as I said, I think we've got 36 and growing by the week at the moment. And we really encourage you that if you are keen to meet others and get involved on the ground, reach out. These groups are awesome. Like the stuff that they're doing locally is so creative, so fun. I think there's going to be like a line dancing for Māori Wards event happening up in the Waikato. It's all going to be going on. So if you want to get involved on the ground, just flick us a line and we can connect you with the people that might be in your region who are working on this too.
Oh, Kassie, you had me right up until line dancing. I don't know. I just want to share this as well, and this is really not part of it, but for people who haven't heard the end of the story from Ellen Tamati as well, this post is put up on Okaha's news website update. With her blessing, images of Ellen Tamati are now being shared alongside photos of her mokopuna and whānau taken with their consent. Obviously, the complete opposite of what has happened. All part of the new Toitu Te Tiriti campaign supporting a yes vote for Māori wards across Aotearoa. This is in stark contrast to the billboards that appeared just days ago without her consent, used in the no campaign by Hobson's pledge. So there's a picture of the whānau, and I don't know if these are genuine or are they. That's for real, doesn't it? That looks like it's actually up on a billboard. My mana, my voice, my mandate. Vote yes to Māori wards. My mana, my voice, my mandate. Vote yes to Māori wards. Hey, Kassie, thanks for joining us tonight. Is there anything you want to wrap up with Magenta before we let Kassie go?
Well, I wanted to show everyone some of the cool stuff the Greens will have coming out soon. These ones say I only date people who vote to keep Māori wards. We also have some in Māori as well. But no, I mostly just want to say thank you so much for all the mahi that y'all are out there doing, because you're right. This isn't I was kind of complaining about it on Blue Sky, but the fascism is fascisming a little too hard and a little too fast, and the recolonization, I don't like where it's at. So thank you, because you're right. We need to actually put our words where our mouth is, or whatever, and just get down and do it. That's why I started volunteering, more, and why I've been trying to pester everyone I know that if you can, even if it's as small as a phone call or a data thing, just get amongst it.
And vote. And vote.
Yeah,
I mean,
and actually,
especially in the local
encourage
body.
people
Vote,
who
vote,
don't
vote.
Yeah, if people people who don't vote, please try to have conversations with difficult people, because we need them, unfortunately.
They're the people who vote, as Kassie said. They're typically older. They're typically property owners. They're typically European, and they do not represent the communities that they are in. They are a portion of the community, all well and good, but they are not the representative look of the community. So we all have to go out there and vote. We should start a campaign like take one more vote. Take one person with you. If everyone takes one person with them to vote, then we'll get the change. What does it? Be the change you want.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, actually, at the Greens AGM, they were saying, we want to be good ancestors. We want to be the tipuna that our mokopuna can go, I'm proud of them.
Yeah, because it's
100%.
very obvious that this other side is trying to complete colonization. So you want to be the opposite of that. So, hey, Kassie, thanks for joining us tonight, mate. Thanks for being in touch. And anytime you want to come back on and chat, we are always here. We love having you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me along. And vote to keep Māori wards, and flick us a line if you want to get more involved. Ka kite.
There you go.